took a look around and said, just voting's not enough. So I worked a U.S. House campaign in 2010. That was fun, engaging, and then started asking people who were involved in local politics. A couple friends of mine were elected office in East Lyme, Canterbury, learned how Connecticut politics works.
Right.
Growing up in Southern California, it's a little different animal here. So learned that you had to join a town committee really to find out what's going on. So I did. Joined the Republican town committee here in Ledyard. Found out what was going on. Municipal elections came up. They were looking for candidates. Went before the nominating committee, and they said, we'd like you to run for town council. So I did, got elected, and my fellow councilors elected me to be the chair of the finance committee. So that's where I'm in now.
And I see here, you went to USC?
Yes, sir.
And so you did grow up in Southern California, but you ended up, when you joined the Navy, you ended up getting thrown to Groton?
Yeah.
It's almost the same thing, Southern California, Groton. It looks the same, right?
Oh, absolutely. Weather's the same, temperature's the same. My dad was Navy, so I bounced around.
Okay.
In fact, I've lived 7 years in Gales Ferry, as longest I've lived ananywhere.
Is that right? Okay.
So,
are you here to stay then?
I am.
You are, okay. All right. And you got kids in the area, that kind of thing?
I do. I have 4 kids. One that's married to a sailor here locally, and I've got one who's junior in college and 2 at the high school.
All right. Well, there you go. That's the personal stuff. So we got to get the personal stuff out of the way so we know who we're dealing with. We got a guy who is locked into the community, a Navy guy. Again, I want to thank you for your service. I always try to do that when military personnel come through the door, because I know that that's more than just a little big, it's a big deal to me, and I know it is for a lot of the listeners out there, so I thank you for that. All right, well, let's talk about the 42nd. It's an open seat, like we were talking about off the air, because Reynolds was running for Edith Prague's seat, and he didn't quite get there, so it's a wide open seat between you and the selectman from, is it Preston. All right, so let's talk about some of the issues here. You were knocking on doors yesterday.
Right.
And I assume most of the stuff is jobs, economy, et cetera, right?
Those are the 2 top issues come up on almost universally, everybody I talk to.
Well, how are you going to change that? How are you going to get more jobs in the area, or at least save the ones that are here?
Well, I think the key, jobs and taxes are inextricably linked. We know that nationwide 85% of our jobs come from small business. We also know that in the state of Connecticut, in the last year and a half, we've lost about 17,000 businesses. They've either shuttered or they left the state. The key to being able to have small business thrive, or any business thrive and grow, is having a stable tax policy. We have had anything but that. What I mean by a stable tax policy is really being predictable. Business, if you want a small business to start up and they need capital, they really have 2 primary choices. They either go to a bank or private investors. But either way, they've got to put together a 5 or 10-year plan of how they're going to become profitable. 2 of the major expenses are the cost of regulation and the cost of taxation after you get past personnel. And if the state's not predictable, then how does a small business predict next year, the year after, what their bill's going to be? And then how do they know what to charge? Now, you can have a high-tax state. You can still have a business. Obviously, we've had businesses with high-tax state here. And being one of the highest in the country, it makes it very challenging. But that just tells you what you have to charge for your product or service. So being predictable allows a business to know next year, the year after, can I grow? Can I afford to grow? And right now, we don't have that.
The state of Connecticut historically is, it's all Democratic for the most part. So, you get to, even if you get to Hartford, you're banging your head against the wall half the time. Do you have a plan to try to get around that? I mean, or maybe by the time you get up there, the Democrats will have learned at least something as far as creating jobs. I'm confused sometimes when it comes to the state of Connecticut. I'm sure you are as well. But do you have a plan for that? How to attack the Dems?
Well, I think that the key is leadership. I think that's what's lacking in across the board. I think when you get leaders from both sides together, you can work things out. What a leader does is bring a plan to the table, be ready to discuss. A leader also looks across the aisle, across the other party or the other side of an argument or a discussion, and listens. I think too many times people are talking at each other instead of with each other. They don't understand and take the time, active listening. You say something and I respond back what I think I heard you say and get confirmation. Too many times they're just talking at each other instead of figuring out how to really solve problems.
These district jobs, when you get them, they're thankless jobs. I mean, and I really commend the people both sides of the aisle who want to run for these, because It's certainly for you. I don't know if this is a stepping stone or, one of you want bigger and better plans, but as well as I know, it's almost like you can do no right when you get to this particular level, right?
Absolutely. In fact, I talked to several people yesterday. They said the same thing. I don't know why you're running. It's a crazy thing. I've followed politics at the national level my whole life,
right.
And been an informed voter, and then really just got involved locally in the last several years, trying to understand the issues of Ledyard, serving the town as a town councilor and chair of the finance committee. Learned a lot through the budget process, and I think that what I see is a problem at the state level that needs to be resolved. I think working together, providing more balance between the Democrats and the Republicans at the state legislature level forces dialogue. Currently, when you have one dominant party, you don't have to talk to each other. And too many times when you get one party or one group that is dominating the discussion, you end up groupthink. Everybody talks alike, thinks alike, and everything happens alike.
Right.
When you start getting opposing positions being discussed, I think the challenge now being a minority party, and certainly in the House of Representatives state level, you're probably going to still be a minority party. The key is communication. And if you're presenting things forward, and I know the Republicans have done this, they have brought out, here are the issues, here's what we proposed, it wasn't accepted, or here's the counter argument. I think that what I found knocking on doors in the three towns, I'm surprised at how many people have never seen anybody come to their door.
Sure.
And they're pleased that you're coming to talk to them. And I think that you need to come back to the district and do that more, whether it's in a town hall format, whether it's coming on the radio, whatever, to talk to the residents of your district and then listening to them.
All right. So we talk about the jobs, and you claim that you want to attack that at least by trying to get a more fair, or at least a tax structure that people can recognize, which I actually tend to think is a great place to start. The budget, though, for the state of Connecticut, let's talk quickly about that. I mean, you have a governor who, originally came on and blasted us with the largest tax increase in the history of this state. And I don't know, I all I noticed is I got less money in my pocket. Do you have a better lifestyle now since he's taken over?
No, absolutely not. I think it's one of these things is empty campaign promises. Governor Malloy, when he came in, said his third option was going to be to raise taxes.
Yeah.
My comment to that is, if you're willing to raise taxes, you can create any budget you want. I don't care if you have 100 options ahead of raising taxes. If they all fall through or they don't meet your expectations, then you just fall back on raising taxes. What you need to do is the same thing we do in the small towns.
Right.
You need to have a principled position that I'm not going to raise taxes. Here are my tax rates. Next year, here's the projected revenue. Create a budget that lives within that revenue. And then you have to make choices and establish priorities. It's what leaders do. Leaders establish priorities, they fund the priorities, and then everything else is open for discussion. I think the three top priorities we have in our state that the state government needs to be involved in: public safety, education, and infrastructure. Once you get past that, everything else is negotiable.
Well, you mentioned public safety. We talk about that a lot here in regards to the prison systems here. Did you see any of the articles about the early release programs and the idea that we are letting a lot of these prisoners out? Not just months, years ahead of their scheduled departure date. This is happening over and over and over again. We've always had this idea. We have 9% unemployment here in the state of Connecticut. Why don't we just open up these prisons, keep these guys in there, put these unemployed people to work in these prisons in some capacity? I mean, is that too simple an idea?
I don't think it's too simple. I think the more fundamental issue is the fact that we're allowing people that have crimes against people out. Certainly we kept the people on death row and the people that are life without parole there, but you have rapists, burglars, other crimes against people that were let out. I know that there were proposals, amendments proposed to keep those people out of the program, but they were turned down. Once again, it goes back to having a single party rule. You have one party in charge, one group in charge. The other alternatives don't come out.
Right.
And so what you ended up with is a large group of people that shouldn't have been let back on the street that now have been rearrested. They had one major crime that ended up with a loss of life.
Yep. We're talking again to Mike France this morning, running the 42nd District, which encompasses Ledyard, Montville, some Preston areas as well. All right, before I let you go, what is other than the budget of the economy, jobs, and those are all major things, the group of people that you would represent, what is their next biggest concern in your mind, other than the economy and the like? I mean, is there a regional thing that they really that's really on their mind?
I think the only regional thing that comes up is mostly when I talk to the residents of Preston. Their issue is the Norwich State Hospital. It's been out there for a number of years. No real action. They're frustrated. They see that as a potential for tax-based revenue for the town. The Preston Redevelopment Agency has actually done a great job. About 3 years ago, it was transitioned from the state to the town. I believe that's the right way to do things. I think the town has a vested interest. Obviously, the state did not for a number of years. The town and the local government has a vested interest in making sure that property is a viable piece of property and it returns money to the town. And I think that the having the local level actively involved there is the way to go.
I'll tell you what, I'm not a wealthy guy, but I look at that piece of property and I just can't imagine that Preston has not been able to do something with that from some major investor. That's got to be one of the most beautiful pieces of property that there is anywhere in this area. I mean, I think of, off the top of my head, when I think of the two most, I guess, marketable pieces of property, I think of Preston and I think of Seaside down in Waterford. Both of them have water views. I mean, both of them are, I just don't understand how they haven't been able to move forward with that.
Well, the challenge they faced is really the economic downturn. They've had two developers that have had plans. Don't know the details of why they fell apart, but I think there were two factors. One is the first one was ready to move, and then the economy turns. And
right.
Obviously, there's big risk in major development. If you don't know what the future holds, you back out.
Right.
I think the other challenge they faced was the environmental hazards. Now, each one of those developers supposedly going to mitigate the environmental as part of the process. I think the better plan is what they're doing now. They're working with the state and grant money and clearing and mediating the environmentals and clearing the property. When they're done, another year, 2 years down the road, they're going to have a clean piece of property. Opens it up to more developers that don't have to pay a huge sunk cost of mitigating that environmental risk. But the key there is once they're done, they do have a $4 million matching grant. They're hoping to find a developer that will come up with part of the other $4 million they have to match. But the key is the economy. If it's not predictable as far as tax policy and your future economically in the state is not predictable, you're not going to get a big business or a small business to come in there and do anything productive and bring jobs back to that area.
Maybe another casino. Mike, you've been a good guy. Listen, I appreciate your time this morning. It was great talking to you. Is there a website that you have?
Yeah, my website is MikeFrance2012.com.
All right, good luck.
Thank you very much.
We'll talk down the road for sure, okay?
Appreciate it.
Good guy. Mike, thank you very much. All right, we got to run. It's 50.